stage is then officially set. Today, the country was supposed to be out demonstrating on three key issues. Number one, the, in quotes, unconstitutional reconstitution of IEBC in terms of the commissioner's position. Number two, the high cost of living. And number three, the opening of the IEBC servers. That was the stage all the way to yesterday evening, when indeed, again, Kenya was treated to new information again. That indeed, it is a different affair now. Raila Amolo Odinga came out to say he has called off officially the demonstrations that were supposed to happen twice this week, that is on Monday and Thursday, because indeed the president had spoken in what was, in his view, the only important information around Kenyan issues since the election. Now, Raila Amolo Odinga, unrelenting, really gave the president only 7 days, that's 1 week from today, to look into the issues that essentially have been at the core of his demonstrations. Question being, what are some of those issues that have now been thrown to the National House, Parliament, as from today, so that they can actually start looking into them? Today, we look at those issues, understand their constitutionality, look at the position of the Kenya Kwanza leaders in this entire conversation, and then come back and talk about exactly what this means in as regards as the country moving forward. Now, I'm going to be joined by two gentlemen this morning. I'm still waiting for Callistus Wafula, who's humanitarian J Network, to join us in the studio shortly. But now, to join us right now, we do have a STANLEY NYACHAE, who's a lawyer and political analyst. STANLEY, how are you doing, sir?
I'm very fine. Thank you for welcoming me.
I want to start from this perspective.
Yes.
Was it a surprise to you that Dr. President William Ruto made this announcement at a time when key leaders in his Kenya Kwanza government have been very adamant, they've been quite clear on what their stand has been as regards the ongoing demonstrations or the good-be negotiations that the Azimio side has been pushing for?
Thank you very much, sir. For me, I see sort of a deja vu situation with what happened a few years back when then Deputy President Ruto seemed to have been caught off guard by the handshake arrangement between the then President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga that brought to a close the political tension that had been at the time. And the Deputy President did not seem amused about it. He actually won the previous election, quote unquote, yeah. On the premise that the handshake arrangement is what delayed or destroyed the Big Four agenda. And I see sort of a deja vu incident where the elements of the Kenya Kwanza ruling coalition representing or clearly represented by the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua and the leader of majority Kimani Ichung'wah and other key players like Ndindi Nyoro and other voices have come out very strongly to sort of premeditate and make it very clear that they do not want to foresee a situation where the President, Dr. William Ruto, engages in any sort of political negotiation with the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. I think for me, this then to answer your question, yes, it is indeed a surprise because of those strong sentiments. But I am reminded of the famous saying that heavy is the head that wears the crown.
Yes.
It is the President of the Republic who understands more than anybody else the repercussions of the situation that we have had. In the 2 weeks only that we've had maandamano, you've seen the political tension that has risen in the country. And, you know, we are only 6 months away, 6 months from the previous election. I mean, it is not sustainable. We cannot live like this for the next 4.5 years. the government needs time to sit down and be able to deliver on its agenda. So it needs to put to rest the issue of elections and the electoral process and IEBC and whatnot. So one way or another, the political impasse in the country between the ruling coalition and the Raila-led opposition needs to come to a close. The donor community is not happy about it. The economy suffers whenever we have such an issue. You see cancellations happening in the tourism industry. I am a lawyer as well as an event organizer. For us, entertainment suffers. Entertainment and hospitality suffers. Nightclubs do not get work. Hotels and restaurants do not get work, and all these associated businesses around it. The transport sector suffers. Everybody suffers when you have this issue. I do not downplay the right to freedom of expression and the freedom to protest. This is a right which is entrenched in the Constitution as long as it is peaceful and it does not infringe on the rights of others. We have seen elements that have come out to hijack the demonstrations and cause chaos. And the question remains whether, on which side of the political divide these sinister elements seem to be coming from.
Yes.
That is a question I cannot honestly answer. I do not know.
That's true.
It depends on who you believe.
Yeah.
But the truth is, this was bound to happen at some point. And I'm glad that the president has decided to soften his stand because at the end of the day, it is the country that is going to suffer if he had continued to hold to a very rigorous stand. And I'm glad that he sort of extended an olive hand to the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. And I'm hoping that now that they have said there's room for negotiation, what then happens in the next 7 days?
In the next 7 days, isn't it?
That's a big question.
Someone is going to ask this question, because if you look at this olive branch that has been extended, it's come with a condition, by the way,
Yeah.
that it's not going to be me, you and I. No. It's going to be done in the lawful way. I hear you. You have presented your 3 issues: the cost of living, opening of the IEBC servers, and stopping the unconstitutional reconstitution of IEBC. Fine, I hear you. And I want to solve this issue. But you and I don't have to speak. Let's present it to Parliament. I will make sure my government recognizes this as top business. You've given me 1 week. Let me go back to the National House so that they can give us a way forward in terms of solving these issues that you've presented. Is that, in a way, an olive branch? Because we do know the dynamics that play then once you take these issues, the Kenya Kwanza, who are essentially the majority in the National House.
I think it is a brilliant political maneuver by the president for several reasons.
Yes.
Number one, as you've clearly stated, I think by now we've established that the Kenya Kwanza coalition holds a majority in Parliament, both the National Assembly and the Senate, either by way of clear an outright majority and also by way of extension through working with the members of the Jubilee coalition from Mount Kenya, you know, the likes of the members from Mount Kenya who have decided they're going to work with the government. I think they're about 19, if I remember correctly, from the Mount Kenya caucus. Then you've got elements in Nyanza, unexpectedly, the MDG party, you know, which is supposed to be Raila's stronghold. And so you do have members of parliament from perceived opposition areas who have already come out strongly to state that they're going to work with government. So by His Excellency Dr. Ruto, the President, saying, let's take this thing to Parliament, it's a political move because he then now does what pilots did several years back, as all our pastors will tell us on Sunday. You remember Pilate's washing his hands off the matter of the crucifixion of the Messiah and saying, the Sanhedrin will deal with it, it is off my hands. So for him, he now removes the responsibility from directly solving this situation, because it is a difficult situation. you're talking about the three issues that you've said. The issue of the IBC servers, that's a tricky question. We'll get back to it.
Yes.
And even more tricky is the issue of the rising cost of living. This is a global phenomenon. It's not happening in Kenya only. These are not issues that are easy for the president to handle. So he is taking it to Parliament, where it is safe to assume that he has a good chance of his point of view being followed through because of the majority that he enjoys. So as to whether there is a genuine interest in solving the issues and listening to the cries of Raila and the opposition remains to be seen, because I think the president enjoys an upper hand in Parliament, and that is why he was very careful to shepherd it in that direction,
yes,
as opposed to a direct one-on-one negotiation where he would have been on equal footing with the opposition. Because, you know, if it's just Raila and the president and maybe a mediator, the advantage seems to have been lost, and it would have been on an equal footing. In Parliament, he enjoys an advantage. Secondly, if you look at the inner workings of Parliament as is prescribed by the House Business Committee and by the standing rules of Parliament, the procedures are very technical. And that is why Raila, in his response, decided to give them only 1 week, because you understand that some of the motions that are taken to Parliament can only be reintroduced to the floor for debate after a period of 3 months, after a period of 6 months. So if the proposals that Raila Odinga would take to Parliament about, you know, reconstitution of IBC and whatnot, if they are taken to the floor of the House and they're discussed, and the Kenya Kwanza wing of government shoots it down using the majority that they enjoy, then now you see the president and his people will say, look, we gave you a fair chance, you came to Parliament, your bill was shut down, then you need to wait. So by Raila giving them 1 week to solve the political impasse, what does this therefore mean? It means that we are going to see unprecedented we will have to see unprecedented procedure being put in place by the chairperson of the House Business Committee, who is, of course, the Speaker, Honorable Wetangula. He will need to put in deliberate measures all the way from today to ensure that all these issues are discussed in a timely and in an efficient manner. Yeah. I foresee Parliament being open for business from as early as 6 in the morning to 12 midnight. And they will need to dispense with some of these procedures that set maybe the timeline maybe being longer. They need to bring things a bit faster, because they have literally 7 days to solve this. Otherwise, immediately after Easter Monday, if there's nothing happening, then
after that, we're going to get back to
will happen on Tuesday. So that is where the challenge is at. What's going to happen in these 7 weeks? I think the chairperson of the House Business Committee, the Speaker, has a very
hard task, isn't it? Let me point you out to the positions that the Kenya Kwanza leaders now find themselves in. And I want to take you back a little bit to what the president did say upon winning the general election. In fact, there's one guy who said that we want a strong opposition to keep this government in check. In fact, there was a proposal that was heavily shot down by his Kenya Kwanza members of parliament when he said we need to create the office of the opposition and actually empower this office so they can actually get to carry out their oversight role independently and in a way that's going to allow us run this government efficiently. Well, that in one way or another got shot down. And just before the president left for his tour, this is exactly what he said. He said, well, Raila Amolo Odinga, I mean, if you have a problem with the way that we're running this government, do not terrorize the country. Come speak to me. I said, in one way or another, you can't say that the president has actually been pushing the opposition side to the periphery. He's one guy who's been saying, well, I recognize them. They actually need to be part and parcel of us running this government. Now, if that is the position for the president, what happens to his Kenya Kwanza side, who now find themselves sort of surprised by this latest move? One, DP, Rigathi Gachagua, is up to the last minute. In fact, up to the point of the announcement of this new route of solving this issue, it was quite steadfast to say, well, there is no 50-50, there is no conversation. The only conversation that is open is you going home to retire and leaving us run this government. Look at Kimani Ichung'wah. All the way to this announcement. In fact, is one guy who said, arrest Raila Amolo Odinga. We are not seeing exactly what he's doing. Is there now a conflict in the Kenya Kwanza government? Does this present a conflict?
I actually do not see it as a conflict. I see it as political doublespeak. Yeah. And let me explain my answer. Mm-hmm. I think the president is very sharp. And, you know, sometimes when the president needs to say something, he doesn't necessarily have to say it himself. Every president has a kamotho. Yeah. You remember, you remember the minister. Every president, you need to have that one member of parliament who will say things the way they are, no filters. That's it. And this current government is not short of such characters. You have Ndindi Nyoro, you have Kimani Ichung'wah. When you hear them say some of the things they say, you know, saying things like arrest Raila, they're not speaking for themselves. They're speaking for a certain elite or point of view, yeah, most times. Yeah. And sometimes they may go beyond their mandate or go beyond their brief, but certainly somebody sent them to say something. The reason I say this is because the sentiments they have made have been voiced by the president himself. And I am glad for the new and the more conciliatory approach that the president has taken from yesterday. But as to, again, for me, it is to question the genuineness of the same, because when the president says that he wants a strong opposition, and then he goes ahead and seems to be raiding opposition MPs and bringing them into the Kenya Kwanza coalition, then what are we saying? It's an issue whereby the Kenya Kwanza ruling coalition is putting in place measures to ensure that they have a super majority in parliament, which will make it very difficult for the opposition then now to counter or to put the government in check, because every time there is a vote, they have the majority, which has been arranged through political negotiation. Whereas if a member of parliament is elected to the National Assembly on an opposition party ticket, and later your opposition, your political belief or your political leaning changes, what would happen in a first world democracy is you'd call a press conference and tell people, look, I no longer support the ideologies of Raila Amolo Odinga and Azimio Kenya Alliance. I would therefore be resigning, and I'm going to seek a fresh mandate on Kenya Kwanza ruling ticket. Who is going to do that? They're going to say we are working with the government for development, whatnot. I've seen my friend, the MP for Langata, Jalas, do the same. I've seen my very good friend and former lecturer, Senator Professor Tom Ojienda. We've all seen them seem to sway from the opposition that got them elected, and now they're saying they want to work with the government
to deliver to the people.
To deliver development to the people. How genuine that is, I don't know, because you do not have to switch political sides for you to deliver development. I mean, you're a member of parliament by right, so you need to be honest to the mandate that the people gave you. They did not elect you to work with the government. They elected you to work for the people. And you can still work for the government from whichever political side you are, because you're a member of parliament. That is the office that you hold. Now, so that takes me back to the question. The president seems now to have, taken a more conciliatory approach. But I think some of the sentiments that have been made by people like Kimani Ichung'wah and Ndindi Nyoro and whatnot, again, I repeat, I don't think they speak for themselves. It is a school of thought, or it is a political idea that enjoys the backing of a majority of the Kenya Kwanza coalition. And it is that they do not want any political negotiation with Raila Amolo Odinga because they fear the previous incident happening again.
Yes. Where,
you have a deputy president who then now becomes not the second in command, but you now become third. So I think that is what they're afraid of, and it's come out. And this again speaks to vested political interests, because Rigathi Gachagua imagines that after President Ruto, it is going to be me, the same way that happened to Deputy President. So I think there's a lot of politics in this, as well as the issues of interest. So it remains to be seen with time what is going to happen.
Fantastic. Guess what? Once we come back now then from this tiny break that I want us to get into, let's look at these three issues that are going to go back to Parliament. We're going to start with the cost of living. See exactly what proposals have been thrown around by the Azimio coalition. Look at the opening of the IEBC service and the reconstitution of the IEBC. If it goes back to Parliament, what sort of results are we bound to see from the National House? And if indeed then they've given 7 days, do we think that the National House is going to come up with results on these three irreducible minimums in 7 days? Because if not, according to the Azimio coalition, it is back to the street. Remember, online at KIAGE SIMBA, that is my Twitter handle, at Lookuptv, across all of them, the hashtag is The Morning Drift. Once we come back, this conversation continues right here.
How do women do it? Will the real superheroes please stand up? Welcome to the best show on all things women.
You can.
Now we have to tell you, on our show, we're not just talk. We're mothers, wives, working women, your hosts, and the list goes on.
We also know how to relax and have some fun. It's living the life.
Yes, it is.
On our next episode of Hapa Kazi 2, we bring you Destiny Best Supermarket.
It is one of the best supermarkets.
There's nothing sweet than to walk all around the supermarket just to find all variety of your needs available.
So we are the best supermarket here. Our customer service is on a high note because we put it together.
From the basic commodities to luxurious ones, they are all here.
I think ni vitu nyingi sana tunaweza brag about, from that supermarket yenye hakuna mtu anajua to sasa Destiny. Yenye ukitaja tu Destiny, everybody would be like, niko na idea hiyo super ni gani.
All this at a very, very cheap price.
We want to relate with the normal customers.
Sio bei ya kutupa, bali ni bei poa kila siku.
Yeah.
Catch us on Monday at 8 p.m.
Right, welcome back to the Morning Drift. My name is SIMBA, Elijah Charles KIAGE. We are still on with this conversation on the state of the nation. It is a day that the country has been opened to a new direction in as regards what we've seen in the country and across major towns and cities on exactly the agenda for the Azimio coalition. Now, I want to take you back to the statement by Raila Amolo Odinga yesterday as regards his decision to cancel the demonstrations, because from there then, that's where the talking point is going to come from, especially on what the president did say yesterday and on the three irreducible minimums, as the cost of living, opening of the IEBC service, and stopping the unconstitutional, according to the Azimio coalition, reconstitution of IEBC. Let's take a look and then come back and talk about it.
We have met and listened to a diverse group of Kenyans, including religious leaders from all faiths, about the crisis facing our country today. They have implored us to give dialogue, especially during these holy periods of Easter and Ramadan. It is in this context that we make this counter-offer to Hon Ruto's call for dialogue. Mr. Ruto has asked me and Azimio to enter into a constitutional, open-ended and binding dialogue with this government to find a resolution to the issues that we in Azimio have raised about the last year's election and the key governance and the cost of living issues facing our country. As Kenyans know, we disputed the 2022 election results declared by the then IEBC chairman, Wafula Chebukati.
That's exactly part of the statement that we did get from the Azimio coalition leader, Raila Amolo Odinga. But then the key talking point there, it is the constitutional engagement. Stanley, when you say constitutional, and then he says, you see, fine, it's constitutional, but you presented three. Number one, cost of living. Number two, opening of the IEBC service. And number three, we stop the constitution of IEBC and we look for a different way of going about it. That is essentially the president saying, this is not me. Because as far as I'm concerned, I'm following the law in everything that I'm doing. So if you feel that it's not the right way, let's follow the law. Let's take it back to the National House. Let them give us a way forward. Now, let's start looking at these issues that Raila Amolo Odinga and the Azimio coalition are presenting one after another. I want to start with the cost of living.
Thank you, Bwana Simba.
Yeah.
And for me, I think this is where we say that the devil is in the details.
How's that?
And that is why the president has referred this issue to the National Assembly for bipartisan negotiation. Looking at the response and hearing the response again of the Right Honorable former Prime Minister, he says he is ready for a constitutional and open-ended dialogue, meaning he does not want any preset conditions. He wants to be able to put all the terms on the table and be able to discuss them and find a solution for them. Let's look at this issue of the high cost of living. I think this is the issue that is the most pressing because it is the issue that affects the common mwananchi. Taxation is through the roof. Subsidies have been removed from a lot of food items. The president says he wants to encourage a system that supports production as opposed to subsidies for consumption, which is, honestly speaking, a very good idea. But I think the reason we have those subsidies is to cushion people in the current situation that we have. So it is basically learning. What the president has done is teaching us how to swim by throwing us in the deep end. Yeah, very good idea. Let's support production. But in the meanwhile, you know, those subsidies were helping. Now that they've been removed, a lot of Kenyans are feeling the trickle-down effect, because that's why you have things shooting up. Fuel subsidies have been removed, so fuel has gone up, which translates to a higher cost for transport and whatnot.
Yes.
Unfortunately for the president, this is not something that he can be able to solve in a day. It is happening all over around the world. We're still recovering from the effects of COVID-19 that you know, ravaged global economy for most of 2019-2020, and now you're dealing with the backlog for the same. And as a country, we've just gone through an election cycle, and you know, every time we have an election, our economy sort of dips, the shillings dips against the dollar, and then we're able to pick back up. So I honestly do not know how how they are going to solve the issue of the high cost of living in 1 week.
Yes.
But Simba, there's one issue I'd like to address. For me, there are low-hanging fruits in that discussion, which we need to be honest about. The president talks about austerity measures in one hand, and then in the other hand, we see them doing the exact opposite. And I've had this argument on my social media platforms and WhatsApp groups with a few members from the other side of the political divide on these issues. We have seen reports by the Auditor General and by the Comptroller of Budget saying that, you know, the Office of the Deputy President made requests for this and that within weeks of assumption of office. And then we hear now reports that the President and the Deputy President have already utilized the budget for the whole year in terms of hospitality. After only, is it 4 months or 5 months?
5 months, yes.
Watu wanakula mandazi mingi and they are flying everywhere. You know, when the president wants to go somewhere, I always see Kipchumba Murkomen, I always see, I don't know who all these people are. Basically, they're saying one thing and they're doing the exact opposite. Now we saw the other day they've made a request for 800 million Kenya shillings for vehicles.
Between the three gentlemen.
Between the three gentlemen. We have now the office of the spouse of the prime cabinet secretary. We do not even need that office of the prime cabinet secretary. I assure you, Kenyans don't need an office for his wife. Let Bona Mudavadi find something for his wife to do. She can run an NGO and whatnot. I feel very bad that I have to pay taxes for the wife of the prime cabinet secretary. I don't even know what a prime cabinet secretary is. The Supreme Court made itself very clear on the issue of cabinet administrative secretaries.
Yes.
It is a continuing illegality that the Kenya Kwanza government has said there's nothing you can do. And that is why they decided to swear these people in 6 o'clock in the morning, State House, you know. Hata walevi wengine hajatoka kwa baa bado, and we are swearing in cabinet administrative secretaries. What work do these people do?
The 50 you forgot to mention.
And they're 50. The negotiation was the parliamentary, the Public Service Commission said, look, we are going to advertise for 23 slots because the government has said they want CASs, so we're going to give you 23 of them. That is what was advertised, also the positions that were created. But what does the president do? He appointed 50. We even have a very funny situation where there's one particular CAS who was holding 7 dockets, who has now transferred his 1 docket to 7 CAS. I think that is David Osiani. Because one of the cabinet secretaries, I think, resigned to go into active politics. So his boss was handling 2 ministries. So by dint of that, this guy was handling 7 offices by himself. But now the Kenya Kwanza government that is trying to take care of hustlers has decided to give 7 positions to 7 different individuals. Our economy is already suffering with a bloated wage bill, and the issue of the CSS for me, that again goes, that is one of the reasons I question the honesty of this Kenya Kwanza government. They say one thing and they do the exact opposite.
Yes.
in a country like Kenya that is still suffering from, bloated public wage bill, where we do not have enough money for development. We do not need a prime cabinet secretary so that Mudavadi can be made to feel good. We definitely don't need an office for his wife. We definitely don't need to be appointing 50 CASs. We definitely don't need to spend 800 million shillings on new vehicles. We definitely cannot be finishing pesa ya mandazi after 6 months.
And ask for more, by the
And
way,
ask for more.
Yeah.
I mean, it is an insult to Kenyans. So these are things that can be done. When you talk about the high cost of living and then they say, oh, we need to give the current government time or whatnot, that is where the dishonesty comes. Because, I mean, why did you do this? You didn't have to do this. I know it is not easy to move the economy from here to there in one day, but you're shooting yourself in the foot. These are the things that I can point out to and say this was not necessary for the common Mwananchi. I don't know when I'll ever enjoy the services of the office of the spouse of the what. It's even a mouthful. I can't even pronounce it. So these are the things that Bwana Ruto needs to be honest about. These are the ones you can solve. That one can be solved in 1 week.
Yes.
Fire 27 CASs to back in Awale 23. We cannot be creating positions to reward Akina Millicent Omanga and all these other political rejects who failed elections, Akina Kidero. We're creating positions to and that's the same thing that Moi used to do. We had a bloated government because Moi needed to make sure that he has put everybody in check. There's a PS or a cabinet secretary minister from every area of the country so that he can be able to control the country. We have moved way past that. You need a lean government that can work, comprised of technocrats who are not politicians.
Yes.
We don't need to be seeing CSs in the government every day, just insulting Raila. That is not the work of a cabinet secretary. Leave that to, Akina Kasudi. But we need to see government delivering on their promises when it comes to high cost of living, austerity measures. The president promised he's going to be having a lean, working government. So let him do that.
Let him do that. Now, I want to take you back to the bigger one here, that is on the opening of IEBC service. It's a contentious issue. And I want to point you out to what happened towards the two, I would like to call them principles to actually address the nation just yesterday. There was a website that was launched, and they called it the whistleblower website, that was indicating that indeed now we do have some data here from the whistleblowers who are saying that we did win that particular election. So what we want for the government to do is give us the back-end access of the servers for the 2022 August general election, so that now we could come back and show you that indeed we did win this election. Is that something within the parliament's purview? Can they do that? And if it is so, does it not then make us start asking questions on these cases that you presented in front of the courts? All right, in terms of how you now did know very well what the IBC servers contained. We also did know that in that petition also, the courts did rule that you have access to the IEBC servers, so you can actually present or use them to build up your case. Two questions.
Bwana Simba, this is a political issue. My understanding of the law, where this process has reached, the electoral dispute ends at the Supreme Court. After the Supreme Court decision, legally there is no provision that is binding upon the respondent who now was able to succeed and become the president. There's nothing more that you can compel Dr. Ruto to do as a matter of law. But now this becomes a political issue, where we are now saying that the law says that if you have a dispute, you take it to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court makes a decision. That has passed. But now what are we going to do? Because we are in this position we find ourselves in. And the president quoted Winston Churchill in his statement yesterday, whereby he said that courage is not only just standing up to speak, but it is also what it takes for you to sit down and listen.
Yes.
So I am, again, encouraging the president to do exactly what he is saying. This is not a legal issue for him to hide behind the law. Because if he does that, then we will never get anywhere, because we know what the law says. This is an issue of, it's a political issue that requires a negotiation. A negotiation is not illegal. So they keep saying that they do not want to break any laws. For you to have a political dialogue, you're not breaking laws. It is you putting your pride aside and your ego aside and saying, look, let's come together, let's find an amicable solution. The moment they are willing to do this, they will find an avenue, because it is a political settlement, and the law, the law provides for mechanisms for parties to come together and to be able to do this.
Yes.
So whether it is through parliament, whether it is through whatever mechanism, they are able to address the issue of the IEBC. But it has to be a politically negotiated issue that is bipartisan. You have both sides coming together and they're able to do this. Because you cannot compel who is going to compel the IBC to open the servers? There's nobody who can do that. But if they're able to come together, they can be able to cause an audit to be done. And IBC can be invited to Parliament to give a report, and Parliament is able to interrogate on all of these issues.
Yes.
And that is how you solve political issues in a bipartisan manner. But if they seek to hide behind the law, they will be able to do that. So on both issues, the constitution of the IBC plenary of commissioners and the issue of the opening of the servers for audits to be done, these are issues that need to be handled through political negotiation.
Pretty much. So just as we then cap this conversation, Mr. NYACHAE, this morning, if indeed, and these are questions that have been asked from both ends, and you would hear DP say, hakuna nusu mkate kwa hii government yetu, they say, we don't want to talk to you, we don't want you inside the government. Is it now becoming clear that if indeed Raila Amolo Odinga is granted these things that he wants, that if indeed the Kenya Kwanza government is then coerced or given the leeway to say, well, can you work on these things in a way that then will present a solution to the Azimio coalition or the opposition government in the country? Is it standing out that indeed Raila Amolo Odinga did not want a thing in this government? Because those two gentlemen have been quite clear from the beginning. Raila Amolo Odinga has been saying, well, I do not want in government. I just want them to solve these issues that I'm presenting to them.
I do not know if it is a good thing. It is both a good thing and a bad thing that Raila has been the enigma of Kenyan politics for a while.
Yes.
I think he's dominated politics without ever having been president since 1992. He's been, at the top levels of politics. And he's a very polarizing figure, polarizing in the sense that you either really like him, like half the country does, or you really dislike him, like the Kenya Kwanza people really dislike him and call him all sorts of names.
Yes. Mr. NYACHAE, I'll be told we have 45 seconds if you could summarize on it. Yes.
Yeah. So again, for me, we should look at these issues of the demands that are being made by Raila. They're not for Raila, because Raila is one man and his time will come to an end.
Yes.
But the issue of political credible elections is something that needs to be solved for the entire country. After Raila has left, you still need an IBC that works. After Raila has left, you still need a cabinet that is working. You need the high cost of living to go down. This is not for Raila. Raila can afford to buy bread and fuel at whatever price. How about me and you? So let's put the love and the hate of Raila out of it. Let's address the issues, because the issues are genuine and they need to be addressed. And they're not for Raila, they're for us. Yeah.
Pretty much. Better spoken there by Mr. NYACHAE, and I do apologize that Mr. Ofula did not actually, was not able to make it to the studio. He was actually on the way. Guess what? I'll look for a space so that I can actually invite these two gentlemen back, because now, Parliament, if you did hear what Mr. NYACHAE said this morning, they've been given 7 days. So it's up to the chairman of House Business, who is essentially the Speaker of the National Assembly then, to prioritize this business and present it to the National House so that it can be debated upon and the solutions presented within the next. By the way, if Raila Amolo Odinga was saying the truth, then they have 6 days. So that means that time has to be running. But when they go back to the parliament this morning, they got to talk about this. So all eyes now on the National Assembly then, as the president right there throws the ball to the court, saying, let's talk constitutionality. So all those cases that you are presenting here, they're not you and I. That's unlawful. Let's take it to the house that draws the laws so we can actually get solutions from them. So the entire of this week, we shall be at the National House, then giving you those stories and emotions from the National House on exactly how they are going to present solutions on the 3 irreducible minimums that have been presented by the Azimio Coalition. Mr. Shai, thank you very much for coming by. All right, we take a tiny breather right here on the Morning Drift. Once we come back, Ian Kitani and I will be taking you straight to whatever it is that you are talking about online, and then later come on with our Sports Monday, see exactly what happened wrong yesterday to Man United and Liverpool, and talk about how Arsenal are one win away from clinching the EPL title. Hopefully they do it, because some of us are waiting for so long. All right, once we come back.